1, 2, 3, 4. First melody note is C, and the first chord is C major. So using a C6-9, taking it down here, rootless C6-9 for the G melody note. Then another C major 7 with the E as the high note. Coming back to the first one, playing off the D and back to the C. Now the chord changes to E7. So I'm using a rootless E9 for the 5th on top, sliding into another rootless voicing for the 3rd on top, and then a first inversion triad. Here's the E. These are all E chords or E7 chords. And then that's where the melody stops, and during the pause I throw in another half step into an E7 chord. Here's an E, I'm going a half step in to an E7, but I'm not putting the E in the chord, I'm leaving the 5th in the bass. For A7, got the root note up on top, the high note's A, using this diminished chord shape for an A7 flat 9, and here's an A9, half step into that, then moving this shape up again for an A7 flat 9, back to just an A7, and then a D minor sus, or a D minor 11, back to a D minor 7. And then starting on an E7, melody notes in E, it moves down by half steps. Just using another part of an E7 chord there. Back up an E triad. 3, 5. This is an A minor 7 sus, kind of like we did over the D. And now it's got the 4 as the high note. You could call it A minor 11. Back to A minor 7. And then for the D7, I've got the B on top, so it's a rootless D13, down to a rootless D9, again, and then up to a D9 up here, with D as the highest note, back to a rootless D13, and a D minor 7, with A on top, and a half step into a G7 chord. Second half starts the same. E7. Here's the A7. The D minor 7. Now it's going to be an F major, using an F6 because the melody note's D, making it minor, coming down to 7th of a C major 7th, and the 9th of an A7 or an A13, single A note, and then 2 inversions of a D minor 7. That's got the 7th on top, 5th on top, back to 7th on top, and then this, you could say this is a D minor 9 or a G7 or G13 sus maybe, and then a G7 flat 9 13, and then finally finishing on C6 9 again. And then if you want to throw in the chords, here's a diminished chord. It's an E flat diminished, D minor 7 inversion, and then I used a rootless G13, and then the tune begins again.